Hi everyone, welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast, and it's jumps action that takes centre stage once again after a brief hiatus with the return of the flat last week, which the Spieler was absolutely glued to. That is Matt Tombs. Welcome along, Matt. And Donn McClean joins us as well. But we've got the Grand National Podcast, which takes place on Friday. So that's obviously going to be previewing the big race there, 11 a.m. UK time. And we're going to get stuck into the first 2 days of Aintree's Grand National Festival, which is shaping up pretty well, I think, over the next, I'd say about 40 minutes or so. A reminder to like, follow and subscribe, however you're listening or however you're watching, is the best and really only no-cost way of supporting this podcast. So please do that if you like our content, and also of our free bet offer. So you can get £50 in free bets using the code POD50. You just need to bet and settle a total of £50 or more across at least 4 different bets. They can be on singles, on multiples, on bet builders. Just got to have minimum odds of 2.0. They've got to be on a separate event as well. And that way you can bet 50 and you can get 50 in free bets. Just use the code POD50. More T's and C's are on the website. All right, let's get stuck straight in. We've got lots of Grade 1 action to get through. We'll be putting up some handicap shouts as well. But first of all, Matt Tombs, welcome back. Let's head straight into the 1:45 at Aintree, 2.5 mile novices chase. And sorry, but Don and I agree. So you're on your own, I'm afraid. Who do you like?
I'm outvoted. It's a pretty good race. This has sometimes been a weak Grade 1, despite being a substandard crop of novice chasers overall. This is competitive. I would want to take on Gidley Park. I'm just not sure what Windsor form is going to prove to be worth. I think it's a trappy course, and some of those horses who've done well there could turn out to be flattered, despite Caldwell Potter coming franking the form. You guys both like Django Bailly, so I'll let you talk about him. Croke Park's interesting, 2.5 mile specialist, so he's got his conditions. He's unbeaten by being outspeeded by Ballyburn at DRF when Ballyburn managed to keep his jumping together when he's going at a steady pace. And he finished in front of my selection in Pere Pass there. But Willie Mullins' high-class hurdle never went a yard at Leopardstown. But his previous form in the Faheen, when beating Jordan's, who ran a very good race in the Plate, and I know Don likes him for later on, I think that's strong form. And 2 ththings bring me down on his side. First is first-time cheek pieces. He's looked a bit lazy mid-race in recent starts, so I can see the case for them improving him. And the second is Paul Townend's elected to ride him. JJ Slevin, who rode him at DRF, he's at Aintree, he's riding Hunter's Yarn for the same connections in the Red Run. So Paul has taken a positive decision to choose to ride him. He was only just over 3 lengths behind State Man in the Christmas Grade 1 hurdle last season. In terms of raw speed, he's much the quickest of these. And that's a big asset around this sharp track. So he does have to put a poor run behind him, but he's fresh. And if he puts his best foot forward, I think he could be too classy for these.
Don, I'll be honest, I was very nearly a no bet, but I've got a few across the couple of days, so I didn't want to be too white flaggy, but I could have been either or, to be honest. I don't think I fully trust in Pere Pass. I think I do Django Bay over this distance, but then obviously the Arkle was a funny one. That's at the back of my mind, particularly with Majbrook not quite bombing out, but not running to or not jumping to his best. So I'm tepid. I wouldn't exactly be telling people to steam into Django Bay at 3.75, but this is the way my arrow came down over it in Pere Pass, just about.
Yeah, no, I think I'm probably a bit stronger, Tom, on him than you are. I thought he'd be a fair bit shorter, actually, than he is. I just think he's got so much in his favour. Like, he only ran in the Arkle because Sugino didn't run in it, and because there was no 2.5 mile Grade 1 race at Cheltenham this year. So look, we know that's all been well documented. It was great that he was in it. And, I know he looked out with the washing running down the hill. And I think Nicola Bonville said somewhere afterwards that he'd more or less given up hope. And he actually made quite a bad mistake at the third last fence on the run down the hill. But it wasn't like there was a pace collapse. Like, he finished off his race strongly to go and win the race. And directly after that race, I thought Manifesto Chase, that's the race for him. And he's got really good form at Aintree. He won the Formby hurdle, the Grade 1 race there last year, and I was hurdling now. Far and Glory fell and probably would have beaten him, but he still won it. He was actually running. He ran a big race in the Premier Handicap Hurdle at this meeting last year when he finished second behind Katira. He was really badly hampered by Springwell Bay's fall at the second last flight there. He did really well to to even to get back into the race from there. So I think back at Aintree, up to 2.5 miles, that's a big positive for him. He's only had 3 runs over fences. He's still improving. And look, his hurdles mark of 146 is well below Aintree Pass hurdles mark. And he's the Aintree hurdle winner from last year. So, of course, you respect Aintree Pass. And as Matt said, the cheap pieces might just help his jumping a bit, but he's going to have to jump better. I think Django Bay is way more solid. I think he could morph into a really high class, 2.5 to maybe even 3 mile type chaser next season. So I'm looking forward to that. And Matt mentioned Croke Park. I still think Croke Park is generally an underrated horse. I actually thought he'd be more of a stayer this season than he has proven to be. He won his beginner's chase over 3 miles back in November at Ferryhouse, but he's got pace for 2.5 miles or for kind of intermediate trips, as we saw against Ballyburn at Leopardstown. So definitely respect him. But I just thought Django Bay, I think he's got so much in his favour. I thought he'd be a good bit shorter than he is. And yeah, I think he's a bet at about 3.5 or thereabouts.
All right, that's the opening Grade 1 contest. 1 shout for Aintree Pass, 2 shouts for Django Bay. Then we've got the 4-year-old juvenile. Nothing from you here, Matt. I'll just kick off with Wendrock, I guess, who I know I put up in the Fred Winter last time. He ran, I thought, better than expected, finishing 6th, given that he was top weight in that. And then I guess I compare him with Put Your Hands Together and the weight reversal they've got. I think £7 it is. I think he can get closer to him. I think a bit of a test at this sort of trip is exactly what he wants, which is likely he's going to get. I thought he ran well last time. When obviously they went hard, he just didn't kick on as strongly as Put Your Hands Together. But if you go back to his defeat of Joseph's Mare in the Grade 1 prior to that, I think there's a case to be made that he is a top level horse. And it was just at the prices 12.0. I thought there was just a bit too much between him and Joseph's favourite in this race, Put Your Hands Together, than there should be. So I'm feeling like I can get him into a place. I want to back him win and place, definitely. I'm not saying he's the best horse in the race, but I think because he was beaten by the other horse in a handicap, he's been a bit overlooked for this. Don, who are you with?
Yeah, I'm with Marcia, Tom, and there's actually not much between Wendrock and Marcia on the running in the Fred Winter hurdle. She does get the £7 mare's allowance, and she was actually conceding weight to Put Your Hands Together in the Fred Winter, so she's meeting him on £13 better terms for an 8-length beating or thereabouts. But not only that, I just thought she travelled really well through her race, and her run just kind of flattened out a little bit. On her previous run at Naas in that race, that's such a good pointer to the Fred Winter hurdle. She ran a big race there. She stayed on. She didn't have a whole lot of luck in running. She had a little bit of traffic trouble in behind and trying to get out and after Back in Alien, and she nearly caught him. She just went down by a neck in the end, and Back in Alien then came out and won a Grade 3 next time. The third horse, Ephesus, he won at Limerick yesterday, so a boost of sorts to that form. But it's normally a good race, and I think it was a good race this year again. Back in Alien, I'm sure we're going to hear more from him, from Declan Queeley's horse. But Marcia, she was probably maybe didn't go forward to the degree that you would have expected, or that I would have expected anyway, in the Fred Winter hurdle. And on the run down the hill, it looked like she was going to be a big player in the race. It's significant that Willie Mullins is sending her here into a Grade 1 race. Like, I'm sure he's got thoughts in mind for the champion 4-year-old hurdle at Punchestown. I'm sure Poneros is going to go there, and maybe Lady Vega Allen as well. But Marcia, the fact that he's running her here in the Grade 1 race at Aintree, and it's probably not as strong a anniversary hurdler, that I think that's what it's still called, as it often is. The Triumph hurdle isn't as well represented as it normally is, so I think it's a winnable race. And look, Put Your Hands Together sets a good standard. He was very good in winning at Cheltenham. I thought maybe he'd be a Galway hurdle horse. So again, interesting that Joseph O'Brien and JP McManus are coming here into a Grade 1 race instead of going on to a Galway hurdle, as Joseph did with Nürburgring last year, the juvenile hurdler. But I thought Marcia, again, I thought she'd be a bit shorter than she is, and Paul Tennant's on board as well. I think it's significant that in here in one race, the £7 mare's allowances, that's a big positive for her, I think.
Just a quickie, why no bet for you, Matt, in this? What would be, is there sort of an obvious reason?
There's a bit of an historic reason in terms of back in the day, the juvenile hurdles were all dominated by ex-flat types, and they didn't tend to train on. And so historically, I sort of watched those races and focused on other things. A lot of them are more jump spread these days, but that's part of it. So it's just with a lot of races to cover in a short time, and also this looking quite open, as you said, the best juveniles from the Triumph not that well represented. That's why I passed.
Yep, fair enough. Makes perfect sense. I just wondered if there was anything historic in there per se, like a wait for the day angle. Okay, the bowl next. Go on, Matt. You two agree?
Yeah, this is a really interesting race. The one I want to take on is Grey Dawning. He had a brutal race in the Betfair Chase. I'm not really sure what beating Oroku in what was effectively a match means. The national weights were out by then. The whole vibe around Oroku is he'd only be ready for one race this season. Which Gaelic warrior is going to turn up? Fat Paul Townend's on Embassy Gardens, hardly a vote of confidence for him. Yeah, he did bolt up on his only try over 3 miles over hurdles at Punchestown a couple of years ago. Maybe this is his trip, but he's been out of sorts. Tongue tie went on. So he's the sort of horse that if he beats your selection, you just shrug your shoulders and move on to the next race. Hoisted York is a Aintree and this meeting specialist. I know you like him, Tom, so I'll let you talk about him. So there are a couple of one at a price I just keep an eye on the vibes for, which is J-Lo, who very good in the Peterborough Chase, showed he stayed a sharp 3 miles in the Denman. I can forgive his 2 defeats. First was at Windsor, which I've touched on. It's just a track some horses don't take to. Second was in the Rhino when Venetia's horses were running poorly. He's Venetia's first runner of the meeting. They still don't look to be in great form, so I'm just about resisting. Maybe he's more one for momentum punters. If there's a lot of market support, that'd be interesting. Maybe you then back him at a shorter price. But I do like Spillane Tower. Always happy enough to forgive a good horse not taking to the idiosyncratic King George test. There was Chatley didn't travel over that well for Kempton, so that is a bit of a risk. Perhaps you wait and see what the vibes are on the day. But I thought he shaped like the best horse in the John Durkan. And whilst that is the start season form, it was a very strong race. Jimmy Mangan said before the race, he'd only got on the grass a few days before he'd really need the run. And he looked like it. Factor File looked to beat him for being more sort of first run of the season fit. Spillane Tower looked to stay this trip when he went to Punchestown, beat Monty Star last spring. So for me, he's the most likely winner. And around 4.6, he's a nice backable price.
Don, what would you like to add?
Yeah, not a huge man, Tom. Matt's covered a lot there. Like Lansar, he's such a likable horse. His end of season last season was really, really good. He proved himself to be among the best, kind of staying novice chases. He won the Willow Worm Gold Cup, the Grade 1 race at Ferryhouse over 2.5 miles. Then he went and beat Monty Star in the Grade 1 race for 3 miles at 3 miles and a furlong at Punchestown. And then his run, that big run in the John Durkan Chase, it looked like he was going to be a big player in all the top staying chases this season. It didn't happen for him in the King George, for all that he was sent off as favourite. But that said, you can allow him that. He had to travel over as well. And Jimmy Mangan's been really patient with him, left him off, didn't run him at Cheltenham, and just taking the extra couple of weeks to bring him over for entry. I think the entry test will suit him as well. A kind of a flat 3 miles and a furlong, that should be ideal for him. So yeah, I think he's a big player in the race. It is significant, as Matt said, that Paul Townend is riding Embassy Gardens, and he's a horse who goes well fresh. He's 9 years old now, but he's only had 6 runs over fence, and he did win that the New Year's Day chase at Tremor, the one that Alban Photo used to always win. He might prefer the ground to be a little bit softer than it's going to be, but I'd keep an eye on Embassy Gardens. But no, I think Spillane Tower, he's a very, very good horse, and hopefully goes and proves it again now on Thursday.
Yeah, I'm pretty warm on Hoisin, although less warm after the tumble last time. So when I listened to an interview with him about having his wind done and how he changed shape physically, I just thought, before Cheltenham, this horse has got the bowl written all over him, having been second last year and a great record at the festival. Obviously, it is not ideal to come into this having made the mistake and a few mistakes and then fell at the 15th in the Gold Cup. But, he seemed to come out of it fine. And I've still got him in mind for this race. I think, like Matt, I want to take on Grey Dawning. I think it's a great win place race with there being the dead 8 in there. And he's the obvious one to take him on with because he absolutely adores it around here and always runs well at this meeting. So he seems a spring horse. I know he's 10 now, but I think he's a really solid win place bet compared to your 3.3 at the top of the market about Grey Dawning, 7.8 voicing for the one side. Right, the Aintree Hurdle. I'm absolutely not having a go in any race that Constitution Hill runs in, I think, ever again, having considered him repeatedly for festivals and virtually every effing start he'd had, to then finally get stuck into him at Cheltenham and the Champion Hurdle, and bless his cotton socks, he finally did deck himself. So I'm out, as Duncan Ballantyne would say. I think you are, Don, as well, at 1.88, Lossiemouth 2.84, Woodhoo 8.8. But Matt Tombs, what's your angle?
Well, my angle is that you're not backing him, and therefore he's almost bound to.
You're gonna bolt in.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, his question is he okay after his fall at Cheltenham? As you said, he's always been such a low, fast jumper that when he stands off, he just doesn't have the elevation to get up. So it wasn't totally to anyone's surprise that happened. And it's always a bit chancy after a fall because you don't know what impact it's had. It's interesting, Nicky said they've done a lot of schooling. Now, that is more Nicky's way than someone like Willie Mullins. And they were very bullish with his work the other day. A race-fit Lossiemouth was no match for him at Christmas when he'd have been quarter cooked. You know, she's great sprinting off a crawl against vastly inferior mares. She had £9 and more in hand in the mares' hurdle, but she's got no form in a race like this that's truly run that gives her any obvious chance of beating Constitution Hill, even before you factor in how much he'll have improved since Christmas. I think 2.5 will be fine on this ground. It's one of those markets that could move a fair bit either way. I can see a lot of people just looking at Lossiemouth bolting up in that mare's hurdle and wanting to back her after he's fallen. So I'm actually not betting at the moment. I'm going to wait and see. I wonder whether you might get something out towards 2.0 on the day. But I think, yeah, providing he's okay, he's just much better than she is and he ought to win.
All right. Betting views only. We move on. There you go. The Hunter Chase. We have 3 betting views. A couple of big prizes as well. Who knew? Don, you can kick us off. Yours is the shortest of the lot.
I thought it was pretty big, actually. Then I saw yours. Yeah, I look. Lifetime Ovation is the horse. I just think he's got so much in his favour. Like he's a classy horse. He finished second in that Grade 1. That was his Chase of Punchestown we were talking about earlier on in 2022. His next run after the Punchestown Festival that year was in the Grand Sefton at Aintree over the big fences, over this course and distance in November, and he travelled really well. He jumped the fences really well. He looked a likely winner, but maybe the soft ground just found him out. Maybe the lack of a recent run found him out because Jessica Arrington was training him then. She was getting him ready for the Grand National. He was desperately unlucky in the Grand National. Many people will remember it. He got carried out by a loose horse who was travelling well at the time. Again, he was jumping the fence as well. Like, I know the fences are not as big as they were, but it's still, I think it's important that horses take to them because they're a little bit different to what they normally encounter. And he did take to them well. He's now with Pat Doyle. He's been with Pat Doyle since October last year, before last, and his point-to-point record since then is he's never been out of the first 2 in about 10 runs at point-to-point since then. Significantly as well, Rob James has ridden him in his last 2 races, and Rob James is back on board. Rob James, of course, won the Hunter Chase at Cheltenham and Wonderwall for Sam Curlin, so that's a big positive. And I think like he's this 2 5 furlong trip is probably ideal for him. He gets 3 miles, but 2 miles 5 over the big fence on the big track. That's ideal for him. It looks like Pat has been training him for this race more than I'm sure plenty of others as well. But it just got that class as well. And yeah, I can see him winning a big race.
Okay, my angle is very simple. It's a bit of a dart to nothing at, I don't remember what price I've got up there. Big old price, 43.0. The last 10 winners of the race: Sam Welly-Conan, Nina Carberry, Jamie Codd, James King, Alex Edwards, Tabitha Worthley, James King, Gina Andrews, William Buick, Derek O'Connor. I think there's a lot to be said for a very capable person in the saddle. Derek O'Connor is on present and counting, who is a massive price. Hasn't looked good enough of late. Sure, with Derek on board last time, I know, behind Captain Tommy, and in particular at Fakenham between Barnstown lads. But you know, this is the sort of conditions he's going to want. You know, he can jump, and with Derek on board, it's more like I want to have the jockey on side. It's very simple. It's probably very novice-y and stupid way of playing it, but that's the way I'm looking at it. Matt?
I don't think it is, Tom. I think probably of all the amateur rider races we've got, the jockeys are most important here because it's 2-5 over this unusual course. So I wouldn't put you off that at all. We've actually managed to pick arguably the 3 best jockeys between us. This is a strange race in terms of predictability. Yeah, 18 of the 24 winners this century have gone off 7.5 or shorter, but we've had ones at 51.0, 67.0 and 101.0. So we've gone for a couple of rank outsiders. Don's gone at the front of the market, and both those strategies have played well. It's those sort of ones in the middle that don't seem to win. And there's a bit of a parallel with the Cheltenham equivalent race. You often get 1 or 2 standout performers in these top hunter chases, well above the standard of the division. Punters latch on to those obvious horses, and they go off short prices despite the huge fields and often win. But if you don't have a standout hunter, and I think that's the case here, it can be an uninformed market. Punters don't know much about the relative merits of non-obvious hunters. So the outsiders can be bigger prices than they should be. So I like Ramillies. He's a bit of an old friend. I've been waiting for 3 seasons to back him. So perhaps I'm a bit blind to it at this point. But he's had 3 seasons and 21 chases over 3 miles or more. A trip he clearly doesn't get in good company. Finally gets a chance at this intermediate trip. He's got his ground. Now, because he's a non-stayer so often in those good hunters and points, it's hard to know how much ability he retains. But on his seasonal debut in October, he nearly made all in a point before getting caught just before the last by Wonderwall, who went on to win at Cheltenham. Got within 3 lengths of him here. That was the last time the gun qualified rider Barry O'Neill was on board. He's back in the saddle here. It'd be great to see Barry get a well-deserved win in one of the big amateur rider races over here. And with that 3-mile form, hopefully Ramillies will be ridden aggressively here. Such an advantage in this. 50.0, worth the play in the win and place markets, anything close to that.
All right, and then we move to the Red Rum Handicap. Chase often suits the front runner this, as we know. You've gone for one of them, certainly, Don, in a race you want 2 on side.
Yeah, both of them, I think, Tom, yeah. Look, we know with the Red Rum Chase time and again, it's a race that it just doesn't seem to matter how fast they go. Like Sam Marie made all the running last year, Dancing on My Own. Remember when Dancing on My Own and the Lucinda Russell horse took each other on early on in that race, thinking they can't last home, and they finished first and second. Editor Dajid won it. Moon over Germany as well for Henry de Brahma. When he won it a couple of years ago, he was handy from early. And like I Met Mozzie, there's nothing I like about My Met Mozzie as a horse. Same with Petit Tonnerre, but they're both hold up horses. And just think in this race, in the Red Rum Chase, it's difficult to come from as far back as they're probably going to be and go and win it. By contrast, Sombrie, as I said, he made all the running last year to win it. He raced off a mark of 130 last year. He went up to a mark of 140. Actually, when he finished third behind Marta Tor at Ascot in November, he went up to 143. He's back down to 130 now, the same mark as the mark which he won last year. He's only 7. He was only 6 when he won it last year. So he's still a relatively young horse. I thought last day at Chepstow on soft ground, he and Javert Alain took each other on quite early on, and he ended up just fading. So you can allow him that. That was soft ground as well. He hadn't really had goodish ground since that race at Ascot back in November. Harry Cobden's back on board, so I can see him running a big race. And Calico is the other one I want to have on side. The two of them coupled, it's about 5.5 or 6.0, depending on what prices they are now. Again, another horse who likes to go forward. I know Matt likes him as well, so maybe let Matt make the case. But I just think Calico. The run at Doncaster was a really good run when he was in behind the pace. He kept on well. I can see him again being ridden more forcefully and stepping forward from that.
You are also with the latter of those, yes, Matt?
Yeah, that's right. I absolutely agree with Don about the tactics in this, and that's a really important point about the horses he's mentioned, positive and negative. Interestingly, in recent years, this hasn't been a race for Grand Annual runners. Last winner to come from it was Oiseau de Nuit 12 years ago. Tempting to back previously you like, because he lost all chance at the start, but I'm taking a chance on Calico. He was about 21.0, he's about 14.5 now, but I still think there's juice in that price. Dan Skelton had the likes of Etalon and Asta La Pasta in this, but only runs Calico, which may be a tip in itself. In October, he edged out Matata off a £2 lower mark at Cheltenham. Nigel Twiston-Davies's run-ups won twice since, now stone higher. So his front-running style, as Don said last time, he wasn't up with the running. Here, I think he will be. Absolutely ideally suited to this, and provided they haven't overwatered, then he should have his ideal conditions here. The mile-made track generally rides the fastest of the three. So I think there's still some juice in his price, and he is very consistent. So I'd be backing him in both the win and the place markets.
My Primoz shout is I sort of feel like it might not be the most sensible based on his price now in the race, but I just can't get out of my head the money that came for they had a couple of horses that were really well supported. Obviously, one of them won the Ultima, and then this horse was as well. And then the standing starts of all the horses over the week that got absolutely stuffed by it was this one. Almost from there, I thought, tell you what, he could go really well in the red run because they go from the front. Now, yeah, there's loads of other bits of pace on, so that's a slight concern. But I think, when you have that initial thought, you just want to have the horse on side. So that's kind of where I'm at. I want to have him. If I didn't, I would feel annoyed if he then went and ran really well. So it's a pretty obvious case. There's got to be loads in his favour. And he should get a better start here because it was obviously, there were a good few cock-ups last time at the starts and he was really affected by it. So Primoz are going to have on side. All right, Matchbook Zero long shot. Reminder that goes live an hour before each race. You're most likely to get best odds because there's zero margin and zero commission. So for a win bet, it's well worth having a go at it. I know ideally different races. Sorry, Matt, you put Ramillies first. I know, but I had to have Present and Counting on board. Yours is?
It is Ramillies in the Fox Hunter, around 50.0.
And Don?
Mine is Gallagher at about a third the price of yours, only because he's the biggest price horse that I'm interested in on the day. So, yeah, 14.5.
That's still a long shot. Definitely still counts as a long shot. Take us through your Grey Dawning lay, Matt.
Yeah, this is partly to do with the Betfair chase. When they run that race on really bad ground, that often bottoms the protagonists for the rest of the season, and it takes them a summer to get over it. And that effective match with Oroku, I don't think disproves that theory for the reasons I mentioned earlier. So he's a pretty short price, about 3.0. I'll be laying him in that win market, but probably in the place market as well, because this is a pretty competitive race.
Okay, that's Grey Dawning and against in the lay and in the place markets as well. Best bets then. I'm with Ahoy Senor in that very race. Matt?
Spillan's Tower.
I did it again, didn't I? Sorry. Definitely my fault.
I think that was me that time. So we're one all.
Was it? Yeah, actually it was, wasn't it? Yeah. You're a disgrace.
Yeah.
Don.
I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed of
Don.
myself.
You should be. Don.
I'm in a different race. Jago Bay. I think he should be shorter than 3.75.
Well done, Doug. Good stuff. Right, Aintree Friday. Just a reminder to like, follow, and subscribe before we get into this. Please do. It really is the best way of supporting all of our content. So if you like it, please do show us that and follow and subscribe however you're taking it in. And a reminder that the free bet offer is POD50. Capital letters POD50 for the code. You can bet 50, you get 50 in free bets. So if you want free bets, do it. The T's and C's are all on the website. Friday, then we go. Mile Novices Chase. Don, we've mentioned this horse already. It's a big price.
Yeah, Jordan's. He's a bit of shot in the dark, I suppose. Just think more to come from him. Like he was good in winning at Punchestown back in October when he beat Monbeg Park, and Monbeg Park has gone on and enhanced that form since. And he just hasn't had a real run at it since then. He ran in the Craddockstown Chase next, and he was hampered early on and unseated. Then he ran in the Faheen Chase at Limerick, and again he was back in the field. He didn't have a great run through the race when he stayed on to take second place behind Ampere Pass. And then last time he ran in the Plate at Cheltenham, and he travelled really well down the hill. He was towards the inside, and JJ Stanley moving towards the outside to deliver his challenge. And just when he was starting to build up momentum, he got the second lap wrong. Like it wasn't a bad mistake or obviously a chance-ending mistake, but it just altered momentum. He wasn't great at the last either. And, maybe you can say from that 2.5 miles up the hill at Cheltenham, he didn't get that. How's he going to get 3 miles at Aintree? I think the step up and trip might just help him. And I just think he's a classy horse who hasn't really got a chance to prove it yet. He's been running really well. And I thought, especially in the 15 chase, I thought he did well to get as close as he did in a race that wasn't run to suit the way he was ridden out the back off a moderate pace. So it's interesting that Joseph O'Brien is stepping him up the trip. He's going to Aintree now, having run in a handicap at Cheltenham. He's back into a Grade 1 novices race at Aintree. So I just thought he's been a little bit disregarded and a little bit overlooked in the market. And I think he's too big.
Yep, that's Jordan's. There is a fair old price in there. Matt, who are you with?
I'm with Stella Story. I'm certainly not against Johannes, as he's been a horse I've been following all season. But just at the prices, my gut feeling is that everyone wants to knock the Broadway form. And I suspect it's better than it's being given credit for. I'm not saying it's a vintage Broadway, but I never fancied Ballyburn, so wouldn't be using his poor jumping as a reason to crib the form. Lecky Watson, unbeaten over fences, always shaped like an improver this season, having been immature in bumpers and over hurdles. Think he's a bit underrated. Stella Story and Better Days Ahead had won at the previous festival and had some of the best graded form over 3 miles that season. So I think the form is strong in the context of a substandard cohort of novice chasers at this trip in particular. And crucially, Stella Story's jumping was much better at Cheltenham. Yeah, perhaps he's learning. He'd only had 3 runs over fences before that. Perhaps it's the softer British fences. But I do think he's really improving as a chaser. And they get racing early here. With that long run between the last 2 fences can be more of a stamina test that's often given credit for. And for a horse like him, who really sort of grinds it out, he can get going, get momentum with that. I think that the track will suit him. He's about 9.0, which, although I like handstands, at the prices, I prefer Stella Story.
Okay, that's Stella Story. I don't know why I'm the only one who's... I thought handstands might be quite popular. That's sort of concerning me a bit, particularly when it's a favourite. I don't know. He's won over the distance. I guess the ground is the one thing you could level against the horse, because he seems to have been best on a slightly softer surface. But then that was over shorter last time, so the form's been franked by Django Bay. He was very good at Foss prior to that. He's been purposefully kept away from Cheltenham for this race. Or he disappointed in that meeting last year. And maybe he's not good enough. And but Django Bay would tell you he is. I just went through them, not wanting any of them on side, and came back to handstands and thought it was pretty obvious and pretty solid as well. Yeah, he's my that sort of price. He would be my nap on the day material. So fingers crossed. Top novices hurdle next. Matt, you can kick us off with Romeo Coolio. You and Don agree again.
Yeah, I think this is one of the more straightforward races. The Supreme form looking strong. I'm not sure the opposition's that good here. And that's especially the case when you consider the record of runners from the Supreme in the top novices. 14 of the 24 winners this century, including 9 of the last 12 run the Supreme. Of those 9, 6 were placed in the Supreme. So it's been the classic sort of race where the second or third, rather than the winner, shows up here and they win. Romeo Coolio jumps, travels, bar a blip in the Royal Bond's been very consistent. Ran to around 150 the last twice. Time may tell is 7 1/4 lengths third to Kopek the board, and William Money's better than 150 performance. So I just looked at the opposition, Tripoli Flyers form with Miami Magic through Potter's Charm. Not sure that's quite good enough. Diva Luna would need to step up a fair bit on a third in the Dawn Run. I mean, Salvador Mundi's more the unknown quantity. He's got to settle a lot better than the Supreme, and with presumably Paul riding him, that may help. But he's got about 11 lengths to find. And I just think Romeo Coolio's dead solid in a race where horses with his profile have done so well. He's around about 2.0. I wouldn't put anyone off that.
Dale says Tripoli Flyer, Travels, Speedy, Turnerfoot, Banker, jump better, please. I thoroughly enjoy the notion of asking your banker to jump better. But genuinely, I like that contribution. Thank you, Dale. Good luck with that. Anthony agrees for what it's worth. You're with Romeo, Don?
Yeah, no, I'd take the lad's case on Tripoli Flyer. Like, he was a non-runner for scratching from the Supreme Novices hurdle quite late, and it would have been interesting to see how he would have gone there. So we'll get a good reflection now of how it compares with Romeo Coolio. But look, as Matt said, Romeo Coolio, I just think he's a very, very good horse. I think the Supreme Novices hurdle was a very, very good race this season. The first 3 home could be big players in open grades now next season. Even the times of the race compare very favorably with the champion herd and all the way through, not just the finishing time. And Romeo Coolio did really well in a fast pace to finish third, like he did clear of the rest. So yeah, look, he's been a high class horse all season. His one defeat before Cheltenham was in the Royal Bond Hurdle, when they kind of rode him more for pace, and Gordon Elliott said afterwards they aren't going to do that again, and they rode him more aggressively and more positively the next day when he beat Bleu de Vasty, his stable companion, at Leopardstown. That was it was a good step forward. I can see him doing something similar again. And yeah, it's like I think he's head and shoulders above everything else in the market, and I think he deserves to be there. Yeah.
Sorry, I had a little bit of break up there. That's Romeo Coolio. I've now got So Solid Cruise 21 seconds in my head, having said Romeo Donn. Thanks to another gets that reference. I'm going to take a chance on Royal Infantry, who I guess the wind thing is the key. I was impressed with him earlier on in the season. He looked good in bumpers as well. And then Haydock last time was really disappointing, and therefore his rating's absolutely left where it is. But he's got to be better than that. He's been off 76 days and had his wind done. And again, a fresh horse coming to Aintree. I thought he could outrun his odds. So it wasn't a race I wanted to play at the top of the market. So I'll have a go at Royal Infantry at 26.0. Very much win and place. Nothing for me in the Melling, having been burnt by John Bond last time. You are with the horse, Matt. Is that just because he looked so good here last time and Cheltenham's not his bag?
Yeah, that's a lot of it. I know Don likes El Fabiolo. For me, the vibes would be important with him. So I sort of put John Bond down without the price because I want to wait. I'll be listening to the vibes, Willie Mullins' column in particular, because El Fabiolo, obviously 2 seasons ago when he beat John Bond easily in the Arkle, if you thought whatever problems he's had, they were coming back from those, then he'd be a huge price, but he's shown nothing very much in the recent past. John Bond just 15 from 15 away from Cheltenham. I was in the camp before the champion chase that he did have an issue with the track. And I just think that this sort of 2.5 mile trip actually may be ideal on decent ground, which he likes on a sharp track like this. He proved his stamina in this last year, so they can ride him whatever way they want now. And he's been so consistent away from Cheltenham. Unless the vibes are strong that they've got El Fabiolo back, then you might look back at this and say the sort of 1.62 or something like that is a very big price.
Don, go on then.
Yeah, I just think at the prices, Tom, it's worth chancing El Fabiolo. Like there's nothing between them. We know that on their best form. The score is 2-1, I think, to John Bond. The top novices heard John Bond beat El Fabiolo, and El Fabiolo made that bad mistake at the second last flight. And he was very inexperienced going into the race anyway. El Fabiolo won the Arkle, and then the celebration chase last season, John Bond exacted his revenge. So look, John Bond obviously had a hard race at Cheltenham. El Fabiolo, obviously it was disappointing that he couldn't land the odds at Navan last time. He didn't jump great. It was very heavy ground. I just think he's deserving of another chance. He's a relatively fresh horse coming into the race. He's only had those 2 runs this season, and as Matt said, a lot depends on how close he can get to his best, because at his best he's very, very good. 2.5 mile trip, that just might help his jumping a little bit. They just might go a half a pace more slowly than they normally do. Matata is interesting in there. It could be that he'll get out in front, and if El Fabiolo and John Bond, Paul Tanner and Nickard Bonville are watching each other, Matata might get a little bit clear on the front end, so they'll probably have to keep a wee eye on him. But yeah, I just thought El Fabiolo should have been closer to John Bond in the market than he is.
Okay, and yeah, I'm very much sitting out, but looking forward to it nonetheless. The Sefton then is the last of the grade ones we're going to be looking at. This is the 440, over 3.5 miles a furlong. My starting point, chaps, was that we talk about the Albert Bartlett being one which causes a bit of a surprise, but this has in the past as well. Thistle Crack, Ahoy Signor, Apple Away, all at double figure odds, and some chunky ones at that. I thought Lucinda Russell's could be interesting here again at a massive price, King of Answers, but will need to settle. I came down, and I hope I'm not regretting not putting that horse up, on Western Knight, who I quite like Jet Blue. And then that horse wasn't too far behind Jet Blue at Cheltenham over 3. And then unseated last time, all right, probably beaten on that occasion. Yellow Car actually came out and franked the form around really well at the festival itself. A sound surface and a solid run 3 miles, I think, is exactly what this horse wants. And on the Jet Blue form, I thought he was way overpriced. It's just a race I wanted to take a big price in. I didn't want to play near the top of the market personally, and Western Knight is just that, Matt.
I definitely agree with you on the big prices in this race, Tom, for exactly the reason you said. Interestingly, the Albert Bartlett form here, since it's been introduced, 7 of the 19 winners have run in the Albert Bartlett. They finished 184, 1F33 at Cheltenham, and the World's End may have won had he not fallen. So even though the Albert Bartlett's been a great race longer term, horses who've been bombed out, it's been the ones who've been running well there who've tended to come on and win here. And I backed Jet Blue and Argento Boy in the Albert Bartlett. They're both a bit disappointing, so I've deserted them here, and I'm taking a chance on a real quirky so-and-so in the Prestige winner, Battleborn Lad. On his hurdling debut, he beat Wendigo over 2 miles at Hexham. Must be one of the best novice hurdles run there for a while. Wendigo went on second to the New Lion, the Challow, fifth to Jasmine DeVoe in the Albert Bartlett. Battleborn Lad then won the Prestige. That was a decent grade 2. Moon Rocket was bringing solid form from the River Don. And as you said, Tom, that got Frank with yellow cars. Very good run in the Albert Bartlett. But Moon Rocket, no match for Battleborn Lad. They went relatively steadily at Haydock. Time was about 10 seconds slower than the Red Russian. Battleborn Lad was the one who could accelerate off that steady gallop. He was doing 35 miles an hour up the straight. So whether that proves his stamina for what's likely to be much more of a truly run race in the Sefton isn't clear. But he does shape like a stayer. He's damn cute, and won over 3 miles. Over Hurdle's half brother was run over 3 mile 3. So he's got his own ideas about the game. He looked like he wanted to run out going on the final circuit at Haydock, hanging right round the bends. Hard work, dumped Jamie Hamilton after he'd won. So whether he'll fancy it, who knows? Very much a win-only bet. But if he does put his best foot forward here, he really does look a promising type. World's End, Chief Dan George and Iris's Gift have all done the Prestige to Sefton double. So he's about 8.0, win only. I thought I'd have a go at that.
Okay. I've just seen the cheap pieces on Moon Rocket as well, as you were taking me through that River Don form. And that horse was behind Battleborn Lad last time. Probably going to back that as well. Great. Having set out the obvious ones, I'm going to have a few on side here at big prices. Yours is a price as well, Dom.
Yeah, I think Gordon Elliott actually has a good hand here, Tom. Jacob's Ladder is a player. He's only had 3 runs over hurdles. He's progressive. I thought he did well to win the Michael Purcell hurdle the last day, grade 3 race, rerouted the Nace. And he travelled almost like through his race, but he really stayed on well. He got the better of Joystick, and the pair of them pulled nicely clear. Joystick made a mistake, I think, at the second last, but I think Jacob's Ladder was probably getting on top at that point anyway. And he's a nice progressive horse. He won his only point to point. He's from the family of Couldine, so I think stepping up from 2.5 miles to an extended 3 miles would suit him. So he's interesting. But I think a stable companion, Familiar Dreams, she's more interesting. Like, she was a really progressive mare in bumpers for Anthony McCann. She joined Gordon Elliott. She got beaten in her first run for Gordon Elliott by Maureen, but she's won her next 2. She was good in winning Punchestown, and then she went to the Shannon Spray hurdle at Limerick the last day while we were all in Cheltenham, and she won well. She really stayed on well. That was a step up to 2 miles, 6.5 furlongs. She beat Grania Cree and Barnahash Primrose. Barnahash Primrose had been impressive when we had Leopardstown the time before that, and Mozzie's sister. So it was a good standard of mares novices hurdle. And again, there's every chance she'll come forward again from that. It's only her 3rd run. She could improve for stepping up and trip. The ground should be a positive for her. She's a really well-bred mare from that Meon Valley family, the Kissogram and Milligram family. And yeah, back on it was kind of yielding ground at Limerick the last day, so that the goodish ground could suit her. And I just think she's a talented mare. She should improve for the last day. She should get the trip, and I just think she's been a bit underrated in the market.
Okay, 3 shots going up. Western Knight, Battleborn Lad, Familiar Dreams. Any other plays on the day? Matt and I are both looking in the 2.5 handicap hurdle. You're big price, Matt.
Yeah, a bit of a flyer here. This is Gin Coco's 50.0. His first tried an intermediate trip. 2 runs ago, just touched off at Chepstow on soft ground he doesn't like by Washington, who then went to Fairyhouse and won the 100 handicap on the Hatton's Grace weekend, easily by 5 lengths, beating Ennis Kerry, who then won next time. Gin Coco can run off the same mark, 133 here. He's going to get the sound surface he likes. if he improves for the step up in trip, then he's not the no-hoper his price suggests. Worth a play in the win and place markets.
Same race, I'll take a chance on Restless Eric, who I just thought in Imperial Cup really shaped for a step up in trip. He's been a consistent horse, a touch unlucky at times. He was massively unlucky, I thought, last time, and he'd have gone very close to beating Godante. I think up in trip, I thought was a must back. The other one I'm sort of really getting keen on is the disappointing Ginny's Destiny. I mean, Paul Nicholls has had. I mean, Caldwell Potter was another one who was disappointing this year, and then look what he did at the festival. I wouldn't surprise me if over these fences with cheek pieces on and the tongue tie on, Ginny's Destiny just made 21.0 look dumb. Like the more I look at it, the more I have to back this horse. It might be dumb to do so, but I can see it. I can really see it. So I'm quite. Perhaps a bit stupidly excited by that bet in the top of Ginny's Destiny 21.0. All right, Matchbook Zero long shot. Mine is Western Knight in the staying hurdle at 21.0. Matt.
Gin Coco 50.0 in the 220, the 2.5 mile handicap hurdle.
And Don.
Jordan's 26.0 thereabouts in the mile May chase.
Different races. Well done, everyone. Reminder, Matchbook Zero goes live an hour before each race. It's the place you can most likely get best odds compared to anywhere else because it's an exchange and there is zero margin and there's zero commission. Best bets, handstands for me, please. 2.62 in the 145. Matt.
Romeo Coolio in the top novices hurdle.
And Don.
I wanted to go Romeo Coolio as well. Whatever about being in the same race, the same horse in the same race was never going to work. So I got El Fabiolo in the Melling Chase. Yeah.
Great stuff. Well done, everyone. Really looking forward to that. Join us at 11 a.m. UK time on Friday for our look ahead to the Randox Grand National and the other races on the Saturday. We will see you then. Matt, Don, thank you. Have a good first couple of days at Aintree, everyone. Bye-bye.